to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As I said, we are currently in session.
Hello, hello.
Hello. She's saying.
Who's muted?
Yes.
The pledge? No, we don't need to.
Okay, what is it?
Thanks.
Okay, they still stand. Does anybody, can I get a approval of the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Is there anything that anybody would like pulled? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So that brings us to the, there were no items pulled, so the only,
donations.
correct, I'm getting there. There are 3 donations. The first is TIAA Cref. I believe that is a donation to, I think it was Furnace Woods. And that was a parent match, parental match.
Frank G. Lindsay.
Yeah, I just can't see
$400.
the, I know it was 400, I just didn't remember the thing. Can we click on that, please? The donations, right where it was, please. I would just want to see the individuals. All right. Right, that one, please. So that is Frank G. Lindsay. The other one is also Frank G. Lindsay, and that was a donation from the PTA for Ashokan, which is always a very generous donation. And the third one is a donation from, if you could please click on the third one, in the amount of $13,250, and that is from Hen Hud Live, and that is the event, I believe it was March 22nd that they, the March 22nd event, where they, the bottom one, please. But it's $13,250, and that will be ultimately for a sound system for Blue Mountain Middle School. And good for them. So if I can get a motion to approve these 3 donations. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain, please. Thank you. I wrote the check. All right, so that brings us to audience comments.
Do we do committee reports?
That's afterwards.
Okay.
Okay, no audience comments. That brings us to our superintendent's report.
Okay. Well, I have much to report on, but I am first going to introduce to the board and the Hendrick Hudson community our new Director of Pupil Personnel, Lynn Rafalik. So Lynn, what happened in about 4 seconds is you got approved. Now, when I was approved a year ago, it happened like in 4 seconds, and I wasn't really sure it happened. But the board approved you, so you are our new Director of Pupil Personnel. She's going to start in June. As the board knows, we went through a very thorough process. We advertised the job on OLAS. A number of people, over 30 folks, responded. Alice and I conducted screening interviews, over 13. We identified, I think, 4 individuals to go to committee, and Lynn rose to the top. She has experience in Arlington and Schenectady and a whole lot of really, really great places who have done really, really great things for students with disabilities and for students who need additional support. And that's really the benefit of having a pupil personnel director. It's not just special education programs, it's programs for students. And so we're lucky and fortunate to have Lynn. I don't know if, Alice, you have anything to add, and then Lynn, we'll let you say hello at the big fancy podium.
Well, I wholeheartedly and happily welcome you, Lynn, to our community. When we led the great big interview, and when I say great big, I think 22 people in the room surrounding Lynn, everyone was so impressed and so glad to have you as a candidate and then you as accepting our offer. So welcome. I look forward to working with you.
So welcome. If you want to come up to the microphone and just tell us a little bit about yourself and
How glad you are to be here.
how glad you are to be here, how lucky you are, we'll certainly take your compliments.
Well, good evening, Board President, Ms. Briggy, members of the Board of Education, Joe, Alice, Enrique, and Roseanne, too. I didn't get to formally say hello, and members of the Hendrick Hudson community. I have to say I'm just elated to be here. Joe talked a little bit about that screening interview that I had with him and Alice, and when I walked out, I said, I want to be here at Hen Hud. I just knew it was a fit for me. And then I had the opportunity to interview with that large committee, and I have to say I was just so impressed by the thoughtful questions that they had to really took stock in getting the right person on board for the director of PPS, and fortunately it was me. Most importantly, too, I just kept hearing the echoing of the wonderful commitment and caring that they had about the Hen Hud students. So I am eternally grateful to be here, and I cannot wait to start on June 12th.
Nice.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. It was quite an interesting, when you said there were 22 people in the room, there were 22 questions asked, and each candidate filled the time much differently, and so it was so great to hear Lynn talk, and she answered every question thoughtfully and carefully, and had experience with so much of it that it was impressive to hear. And welcome.
Thank you so much.
And also, I thank the board for, typical start dates are July 1st for these positions, but by bringing Lynn on a little earlier, she'll be able to have a really smooth transition with Jan Yablau, who has served diligently as our interim director. Those are not easy jobs. We'll be able to spend some time with Caroline and the staff and make sure that Lynn has a good, solid footing and an understanding of where we are and, more importantly, where we need to go with the department. So smooth transitions are always a plus, and we're going to be able to achieve that. So welcome.
Thanks.
Thanks.
A couple other topics. This Saturday is the Healthy on the Hudson 5K. If you feel like running 5Ks or 3.2 miles, if you want to pretend you're a child, at 10:30 you could do the fun run, which I might do. We've really expanded this year the Healthy on the Hudson to involve more students. As you know, the Education Foundation, Community Education Foundation, gives away a lot of money. And last year, over the last couple of years, they've given significant dollars to the high school BAM club, which supports student musicians in terms of equipment, whether it's recording equipment or good microphones and amps, so on and so forth. So those students who have received money from the foundation, their groups are going to be playing on Saturday after the race. They're going to have a barbecue. They have a catering group doing a barbecue after the race. Tom Baker was able to line up and adjust some of the schedules of our athletic events, so we're going to have games starting in the early afternoon, and it will, hopefully over time, will feel like a community gathering, not just go and run 3.2 miles and feel miserable, but to come and eat and listen to music and watch some of our games. So it's going to be a great event.
I could eat.
Right.
Run
Right. Well, that's
3.2
why you
and
would
then
do
eat.
it. Right.
Light fare.
Yeah. Well, to me, it's a reason to eat. We have a science gold medalist, Dylan Gambardella, who has been to our board meetings in the past. You've heard his academic studies and interests with Dr. Rogers. Well, he's a gold medalist from the iSweep 2014 in Houston. He will be joining us, we believe, in early June to give the board and the community a walkthrough of what his experiences were in Houston. So we're excited to bring Dylan back next month. We are on the eve, or cusp, I should say, of kicking off our Instructional Technology Smartboard Academy. If you remember back in January, Matthew Swirldoff came and defended a pretty significant budget increase to make sure that we are supporting our staff in professional learning for the whiteboard. This district and the board has made a huge commitment to smartboard technology through every instructional space, and your commitment in next year's budget will also bring up the level of training for our staff. So Matthew is actively recruiting a group of teachers who I say are on the lunatic fringe of using technology to impact student achievement. So they're going to be identified shortly and begin their work in June and also over the summer. Our main field, I've been to a number of games at the high school, and I think we should give a really great applause, and maybe not tonight because they're not here, but to our grounds crew, to Anthony Merlini and his staff. That field has held up. It looks great. They're mowing it. It looks greener and greener every day. I know last year we had some struggles with the field, but all of our teams have played home games. We're not farming them out, and it's been a great sight to see that field used and have it looking wonderfully. And my last comment is just what the board approved not too long ago, supporting a sound system at Blue Mountain Middle School through Hen Hud Live. There are also subsequent meetings with the Hen Hud Live committee about other purchases or other investments they'd like to make with part of the $30,000 they raised. So $33,000 they raised, the largest ever. And they all credit it to the jazz band that performed. So I think the jazz band will be back next year. That's for sure.
Or at least you are.
Or at least I will, right. I'll be playing solo, the little drummer boy. So we're excited that that the sound system that you approved tonight is not the only investment, and I know in short order you'll be approving other donations to improve certain areas of the district that they feel in need. So it's good conversations to have and a lot of good momentum.
And good people.
And good people.
And those
Yep.
ladies work their butts off.
Yes, they do. So I'll leave it at that.
Yes. Thank you. And that brings us to committee reports. Don't worry, Charles, I hadn't forgotten.
Thank you. I have two.
Well, then we'll let you start.
Good. I'm going to tie into Joe's remark on Matthew Swerdloff. He was, technology leadership team was scheduled to meet today, and we didn't. He canceled it. He's been in India on a Fulbright fellowship for a month. And I was deeply disappointed to find out. I asked him since he was canceling it if we're going to have curry at the next meeting. And he said no, but I'll have a slideshow.
Is that enough?
So we're going to see an Indian slideshow next time. And I also went to the BVPTA meeting this week, and it was their last meeting of the year. They've had they got an award this year for increasing a substantial increase in membership from the New York State PTA Association called the Golden Apple, and they and SEPTA both got that award this year. And so they talked about that. They've made a substantial commitment this year to having 1 hour meetings, and so they're done in an hour, 7 to 8, and they did that. And they do a showcase where they have kids before the meeting from 6:30 to 7. Kids teach you about what they learn in school, and it was so cool because I went to that and they did one on nest building and animals that the K-1 kids taught, and then there was one in the gym. And this was really interesting because they played a game. I remember years ago people said there's no way that PE can do literacy or math. How do you do that? And they played a game with the parents and the kids where they rolled dice and then you had to say the number sentence, you know, like 6 is greater than 3, 3 is less than 6. And then whoever lost had to run a lap while the other one ran and got things. And for some reason, every parent was losing. And they were just running laps, so they had to cut that short. But anyway, that was good. The other thing that they did, and I can't say who did it, they have scholarships that each PTA is giving out this year. And the BVPTA approved their scholarships. They had several applicants. And I can't say who got it yet because they haven't sent out the notices. But I wanted to read a couple of lines from a couple of the several applications they got.
It's not the kids who won, is it?
Huh?
It's not the kids who won, is it? Don't
Well-
read that because those kids will know. That's the,
Okay, then I can't read it.
no.
All right.
I mean, it's a nice idea, but those kids do it after these kids have been informed that they get it.
Okay, that's fine. It was
The
just
whole
nice.
thing is surprise.
It made me feel really good about our school, our kids, the things that they felt about the building. All right, so that's it.
Thank you. Any others?
See, we're going to hear later. We're going to hear about our exciting policies in a few minutes.
Well, the policy, that'll sort of be tied in. Okay, so that would bring us to the budget hearing.
We can open.
Who's up?
If anyone would like to.
Do you want to maybe talk about
Come in
this,
and,
and then if there's any questions, we can?
Sure.
So, we can just
Yeah,
go through. I
Enrique,
know it's
you
only
wanna
about 5
walk
pages.
everyone
Sure.
through it?
The budget, the link down below, the budget 214, about halfway down, please. Thank you.
And now you just have to scroll.
So
Go up.
Just go down on this, there you go.
why don't you go on? Yeah, this is the budget.
Keep going.
Thank you. We start with our budget. Our budget, proposed budget is $73,364,269. It's an increase of 1.73%. The tax levy is $40,948,000 and an increase of 0.03% or about $12,000. As you know, our district is divided into in the town of Cortland and the city of Peekskill. 93% comes from town of Cortland, and town of Cortland will have a 0.2% increase in their tax rate, while the city of Peekskill will have a decline of around 2.12%. The district also has other revenues like state aid, pilots.
It's got to be higher. I'm dressing you.
The enforcer here is going to make you do it.
Thank you. Other revenues like county tax, we rent some classrooms. So that turned out to be about $32.4 million, which was an increase of close to 4% compared to last year. Next, please. Here we have an example of your typical house. The average house in the district has an assessment value of $7,700. If we take out the start, the net assessment value for the taxes that you will pay is $4,120 if you are in the city of Peekskill, or $5,900 if you're in the town of Cortland. Again, for a house with an assessed value of $7,700 in the city of Peekskill, you will see a decrease of $41 in your taxes from $1,946 to $1,905. And in the town of Cortland, you'll get an increase from $5,768 to $5,780. Next. Legally, we have to show our expenses in 3 categories: administration, that represents 6.2%, capital, that represents 12.3%, and the majority, 81.5%, that goes directly to the instruction of the and curriculum for the children.
What's this average for the state for instruction? It's like 7?
We are about 7 to 8% above the average of the state. We are on May 20th, you'll see also a bus proposition, because as every year we try to have a replacement cycle from our buses. This year, we're asking the community to vote for an additional $525,000 to replace 2 passenger buses, 2 passenger vans, 1 Suburban, and to add 1 vehicle for the grounds people, and also some money for cameras and other equipment for the bus garage. So thank you. And now if you have any comments, it's hearing from the
Is
president.
that sufficient? Do we have to leave a certain amount of time? Or we?
I think.
Okay.
Bob is here.
Okay?
All right, thank you very much.
We
There you go.
legally did it.
So hopefully, people will be equally as understanding and appreciative on May 20th.
Or absent.
All right, so our next, okay, the audience comments is done, so we're now on to policy readings. And the first reading will be educational use of live animals in the classroom, and that one would be Carol's.
How did you guess?
Just start reading and then we'll tell you to stop.
I was waiting for her to pull it up. No.
No, it's got to go to the next page because it's the budget hearing still.
Yeah, it's still
It is,
thinking.
it's
It's
thinking.
thinking.
There you go.
Taking its time.
Educational use of live animals in the classroom, which is policy number 4851. The board believes that animals can have a valuable place as teaching tools in the classroom. The board also
Motion to waive
believes.
further reading of 4851.
Are you?
Okay.
That's our superintendent.
Oh, my God. That's our superintendent. You can keep going.
No.
But I mean,
Charles, say your
We
thing.
waived further readings.
Oh.
Do I
yes,
need to
I
go?
just didn't know, well, no, but I thought perhaps you
Mary
wanted
Pat did it
to
for me.
discuss the impetus for doing this. As it is a first reading, there must have been, is this,
I didn't do it right.
Why are we doing this right?
Correct.
Because we do use live animals in the classroom, and they should be treated responsibly, and not only for the animals, but also for the safety of the students and the staff.
prior to this, there was no
There
done,
was no policy prior to this, and actually after asking this, but almost nobody has a policy with regards to live animal use in the classroom.
wow, that's
And,
amazing.
Or simply just have.
We can
But
sell it
lucky
to
enough-
BOCES.
I'm sorry?
We can sell the policy.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Well, we're
Sell
lucky
the
enough,
policy.
we're lucky
There
enough
you
to have a
go.
vet on our board, so we thought it was appropriate to raise the standard because.
And Roseanne did a quick survey of our staff to see how many live animals we have, and I think it's a handful. Not
Very,
even-
very,
yeah.
very, very
Yeah.
few.
I'm only aware of Kevin the
Kevin.
Turtle.
Kevin.
Kevin the Turtle.
And
And
Frank
Mr.
G- or
Bagara,
BB.
Mr. Bagara has some in his room.
It's a-
And
He's got the
Some
big
fish.
fish tank.
licensed. He has some animals that he knows.
He used to
Although
have
we do have
fish.
some animals that are used during the year, like the crayfish or crawfish, how do you say it?
So do the crayfish have
That's
to
in
go to a
second
vet?
grade
The
and Science
hermit
21.
crabs and butterflies.
21.
And
They don't do it in the high school? There's, I mean,
I don't know, I only have
No
kids that have been in
dissections?
elementary school.
I had a garter snake in my class.
We may want to
Wait,
think about
we're
having.
not talking dissection. No.
no, but there, he said there's none of that down in the high school. I'm like,
Could I make one
Can't send them
suggestion?
out,
Sure.
fish every week.
You've got a lot of bullet points, and it's kind of hard for one person to retain all those, but maybe split it out into prerequisites or things you do before you have an animal in the classroom, and then things that are necessary when you have the animal, like,
I don't know that it really matters. I mean, it's a listing of guidelines to be utilized for all animals. A listing will be utilized for all animals used in the classroom, whether short or long-term residents. I thought that was funny, in the classroom setting. I like the bullet points because I think
I
it's
like
very
the bullet
simple
points too,
in
but
terms of,
most people don't remember a lot of things at one time. You can remember 3 or 4 or 5
Well,
if you've got to go. But, like, this is what you have to do to get an animal in your classroom. This is what you have to do to take care of the animal while it's in your classroom.
I think that's just, I think the,
You want me to just
Truly.
reorder them?
Yeah, maybe we could just
Yeah.
reorder them.
Truly,
Let's
as
put
far
the-
as
let's put the
Science
permission
21
first.
goes, that's where teachers tend to get live animals in their
permission- yeah, permission
classroom.
must be
We
obtained.
have been told in the past, when I was teaching, we were not to keep animals as pets any longer, only because it impacted children that had allergies. So I know any pets that we did have, we either gave to children or we brought home. So that was generally the rule that was followed. But as far as Science 21 goes, that's where the impact of live animals comes in, because it's part of the children's science experience in the classrooms to have live animals.
I think it's thank you for doing this. I think it's
Yeah.
very helpful because, looking at it, it protects everybody. It protects the animals, it protects the parents, the staff members, the students, everybody who's,
And it's important.
and it is very, did you create all,
Yeah.
Wow. Then I think it's,
They have to go to bed.
take back all those things you said.
No,
Could we just clarify
All right,
one thing?
so-
We don't have to send the crayfish to the vet, though, right?
No,
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 I
think the water animals don't.
Aquatic
goldfish that
ones.
went belly up
And
for like
for
But if we did, it
everybody,
couldn't
let me
And it
be to
needs an
Carol's.
autopsy.
Oh,
Animals,
Yeah, maybe
insects.
except aquatic.
That's
This
what I said,
is-
except aquatic animals.
This is a first reading,
they're
so
animals.
perhaps everybody can
to
look
go to
at
the
it. If
vet.
you have
I
any
would just
questions
size
or
them up
anything you'd
quickly.
like to change. we
doesn't
can-
our transportation policy have a thing about pets?
Yeah, we
You
can't have animals on the
transport-
bus. No,
Right.
we can't have animals on the bus either.
Oh, we
I like the stress-free environment.
You mean before?
They don't have to take
Okay, so
DLA.
this is a first reading. We'll bring this back next time.
First reading.
So we'll bring this back next time. If everybody, just if there's anything in particular that strikes you, that would be great. Thank you very much, and thank you, Carol, for doing this.
Thank you.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Thank
Okay,
you.
the next, poor Roseanne.
You could X those out to get rid of them.
Okay.
The next reading actually focuses on it's policy number 4773. The title is Diploma and Credential Options for Students with Disabilities. This was adopted almost 20 years ago. Actually, no, it was 24 years ago. Can't even add tonight, 27. And obviously, this is a first reading revision 20-some years later. I'm not sure who, is this?
No, it's me,
Mary,
yeah.
this is yours?
And the
Okay.
reason we waited this long, it was on our agenda a very long time, but only a year ago did the actual guidance come out on what the new diploma options are for students with disabilities. So we've had this archaic policy for quite some time. However, the law really changed and the guidance changed really only a year ago. So
It's called.
right. So it used to be there was a catch-all. Well, I can start reading first. The Board of Education is committed to
Moved away for the reading.
Okay, thank you. So it used to be under our old policy in the old law, there was sort of a catch-all provision of IEP diplomas for any student or students with disabilities who could not achieve the Regents or local diploma. And the Board of Regents and New York State Education Department has decided to really set more specific goals and more specific guidance on what the options are for students with disabilities. So there are two options now for students with disabilities, or really as well as a local diploma. There's a career development and occupational studies diploma, which is for students who are really progressing along the Regents track, but just may not be able to make it, just because the standards are quite high. So you have students in generally regular education or ICT classes who are just on their way, but may not be able to actually pass the Regents or achieve the local diploma options. So that's the first CDOS diploma option. And then the second one is the SACS, it's the Skills and Achievement Credential, Skills and Achievement Credential commencement criteria, and that is for students who with severe disabilities. So if you scroll down a bit, we noted that the CDOS is for students who generally will be progressing toward a Regents diploma, and the SACS, if you scroll down a little more, is for students with severe disabilities. And we tried to give some guidance on what a severe disability means. That was not in the policy from NYSBA. I had added that from New York State guidance. And the severe disability means students in the very lowest percentiles who will not be able to really even progress toward a Regents diploma probably. So that's essentially the change. And this is relatively new. There's not a lot of guidance or case law on it, so we'll have to see how it unfolds. And it's also interesting because we don't really know how employers in the future are going to view the difference between a CDOS and a SACS. That's going to come out later on, and it's going to have to be explained probably to employees, because there are obviously most students with disabilities can hold down a job, can do very well and succeed, but whether you have a CDOS or a SACS, I don't know how much difference an employer is going to view that. So that's the nutshell, if anybody has questions.
Does that impact their, does this impact their, I mean, I don't know if the CDUS or, I imagine the SACs, those aren't children that are college bound, but does this
Probably
impact their, you know, any college applicant? I mean, is there a difference there as well?
Yeah, I mean, it would be a
employers
difference.
make
Yeah,
a difference.
yeah, it would be a
and, you know,
difference.
note a difference.
It's going
I
to
mean,
certainly impact the college choices. There are, would be post-secondary options for students who get a CDUS, but it's not going to be as, you know, quite as vast as students who get a regular or Regents High School diploma or a local diploma even. So, so certainly it does, and with the new Common Core, it makes it even harder for students. So. And this is something that, as the policy says toward the beginning, if you scroll back, it says that this is something the Committee on Special Education and including the parents will decide at the meeting what track the student is bound for. And most of our students will be progressing toward a Regents diploma and will hopefully, you know, succeed on it. But if it becomes apparent along the way that it's just not in reach, then the CDUS would be a better option.
Is the local diploma still in play?
Only for students with disabilities. And I didn't put the criteria in there because it seems to change every year. There's set criteria for the cut scores on the Regents for the local diploma. The local diploma is not there for students who do not have disabilities anymore, but it is there for students with disabilities. But the cuts, it just seems to change quite frequently, so I didn't put the guidance in there. It just says that it'll be, local diploma can be earned by students in accordance with the state regulations. So,
How will this, getting these different ones align with our goal on increasing graduation, college and career-ready graduation rates? How are these accepted? You know, there are different interpretations of what a graduate is by the state, so how will these kind of impact that? How will it help kids get ready for their career?
yeah, we don't know exactly, but I think a student who gets the CDUS or a SAC will still be getting their own diploma, so
they'll be
they're not
counted as a
graduating.
graduate?
And these diplomas are all both available until 21, so you wouldn't get a CDUS or a SAC until 21.
Okay.
So there's a lot of due process rights before that. You have to give notice if a student's going to be on the CDUS before 21. So it's not, you don't graduate at 18 with the CDUS or a SACS. You graduate at 20. You end your high school career.
How will these impact, Joe, on our academies that we're talking about doing?
I don't think it will. I think it will enhance opportunities to personalize learning, which really is what this gives districts and really students the opportunities. It's not a cookie cutter and one size fits all. This is an opportunity to personalize your learning and have a diploma that recognizes it. So I think they jive very well together.
And
With the kids that are going for a CDUS or a SAC, will they be going through the BOCES or will they be going?
not necessarily.
Will they be in our
no.
building?
They could be in our building. They could be a student who's really in general education. Could be an integrated co-teach class, but they just might not have the capacity to pass the Regents or to even reach the local diploma threshold. So it's not necessarily BOCES. It could be we may want to develop in our school more career opportunities as far as work skills programs and travel training, things like that, where students could really, so they can meet these skills.
Which is exactly what the academy concept will hopefully help us achieve, and we have a team going to Albany tomorrow for another meeting, which is a great segue to a little mini project that Alice and I are working on with Maura Koch at the high school, is to create a state-approved internship program for credit, which will give students the ability to partner with our business communities to go and have legitimate experiences that will be recognized by the state for credit. So I think it opens up many doors, and a lot of these separate pieces are sort of coming together under that umbrella.
Exactly.
So
Work
then
together.
children will still be career ready, which is the
Yeah.
most important part.
That's
you
the
know.
goal, college and career ready.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, the state has not really defined what career ready means. They've defined college ready, but we don't really know what that means. But we do know that students can achieve careers and can achieve these skills, but we just have to
Absolutely.
figure
The
out.
idea is to give them the best.
Get them, and that's the goal of the state in creating these more specific diploma options. Whether how it all works out is going to be a matter of figuring it out.
But I think it is, I think it's extremely important to realize that not every child is necessarily going to go on to college, that, you know, going into a career path might be the most important thing for them. So
Yep.
it's excellent. Thank you.
Different fits. Thank you. This is, I'm guessing because it's a first reading revision, we'll probably need to, revisit
Yeah,
this a
we'll
little
review it.
bit.
We can review it with our
Um,
Do
We
we
can
have
look
it
at this-
posted in the policies under review on the webpage?
Yeah.
It's posted there, so if anybody wants to read and give us comments. you
Well,
know,
it's with any
All of our
policy.
policies are there.
All our policies are, you know, and please, you know, whatever, these are your policies too, so. All right, so we'll bring this back in 2 weeks when we address the animal education as well. The third policy for review is field, it's
Yeah.
basically about field trips.
Yeah,
It's,
this is a funny one, because we're not really discussing the policy. We're discussing what we would say is the role that the board would play. We're going through a process of reconciling two policies, our field trip policy and our supervision of students policy, and we're working on that, making sure they reference each other. But this is really about the role the board wants to play in terms of documentation and accountability going forward with field trips. So the first two documents are sort of our internal paper trails that we have in our district, and the forms go all the way back to 2001, which there's nothing wrong with that. But as a committee, we discussed the potential of increasing the role or the level that the board would play in approving field trips. So we have two proposed documents for the board to consider, and really it's sort of a start with the end in mind. What role does the board want to play with field trips going forward? We cater a policy or a set of regulations to get there. So in my former experiences, we had a field trip policy which had essentially two categories. Day trips, or under 60 miles, had a certain set of expectations, paperwork, a level of accountability that went all the way through the assistant superintendent and the superintendent. And then there were field trips that were either overnight or outside of 60 miles. Now, I think the radius we could sort of have a discussion about. We use 60 miles in Elmira because it got us to Ithaca, got us to Binghamton, and other places or colleges, those sort of things. But what it does is it would create an opportunity for whomever is requesting the field trip to do a lot of pre-planning work, and then to come to the board really through me or through Alice or through whomever, and seek the board's approval of the trip with an understanding that documentation, medical accommodations, a lot of other things are in play. There are reasons to do that. There are reasons not to do that. But we thought as a committee we wanted to start with the board to get an understanding of comfort level and what role you do or don't want to play, and then we'll go back as a committee and we'll revise the policies and revise the forms.
Okay.
So that's that.
This is a departure from our current policy in the sense of the role that we would be playing. Is, just to give us a point to start, what role was, historically, what did you find that what was the role in Elmira that the board did? I mean, did they approve these?
They approved,
And they had
yeah,
to-
they approved overnight field trips and field trips outside of the 60-mile radius that were not athletic in nature, or the baseball teams in the playoffs and they need to go away tomorrow to
Well, we
Albany.
approved those, sort of.
So what it did is it created a little more organizational accountability. It made it public in terms of creating a record made it public for the public in terms of a record of who's going where and making sure that I's are dotted and T's are crossed, that supervision plans are there, that the field trip is educational in nature, which would include an agenda and sort of what's going on and the purpose. Created, like I said, a little more documentation and accountability. I think in the past, there were trips that some people didn't really know about, and it was a way of sort of taking pause and making sure there were a little more spelled out steps that were taken. And at that time, the board felt certain trips should rise to a level of discussion or rise to a level of approval.
Well, I think one of the things, I mean, just my thought, my experience with this for the overnight is, to be honest, is the middle school, like the SO trips, which would sort of fit this this category. That's a 3-day trip that the student government up at the middle school takes, and they alternate between Washington, Philly, and Boston. You know, they rotate. My question is just, are we, in doing so, and again, this is a question for everybody to ask ourselves, I mean, what do we want to look at? Do we want to look at their itinerary? I mean, are we looking to see what the kids are doing? I mean, is that where we want to go with that? Or is it more a function of knowing that somebody has our students for, 3 days and that's the circumstances? Because I would really be disinclined to look at an itinerary,
It's more
to
so
say
that-
that that's right or wrong.
It usually comes up
I mean, I
to
want
us
to see
just
that
for
it's
final approval,
educational.
not.
Correct.
Your
I don't want that.
administrators would have gone through.
Correct. I'd rather see that.
Right. And I think the recommendation of the policy committee was that we do have more oversight as a board, because we do want to, as Joe said, have more accountability, have more planning. We don't want to sit there and say, you're going to this
No, I
site
don't want
on
to
this day. We're not
micromanage
going to
that. But I mean, I
micromanage
think
it.
it's a function of
But,
the board.
yeah, we do want to basically make sure there's a reasonable amount of supervision, make sure that there's planning, make sure there's a risk assessment from a very general perspective. So we do want to have more oversight, but it's not going to be to the point of planning what day the children
No, I
visit
don't,
the
that's what I'm
Washington.
saying. I don't
yeah.
want that part of it, so.
You know, it
But I-
could even be a consent agenda
Mhm,
item, because
absolutely.
we already approved certain items, but we just, to read about it and know that it's there. is there. One thing,
We do that with the volleyball. Every
Yeah.
year the
So
volleyball
this is-
goes, we do that with volleyball.
Similar, really. I mean, it's
They
really
go to
not
work
dramatic,
sets.
Yeah.
except for this.
but there's one thing I was wondering, could this be created as an electronic submission instead of having a paper?
I don't want to know what.
Could we have it submitted, have Matthew work up an electronic submission so that it's then tracked from year to year? Because something on paper, you really can't track from year to year, but then they could create it and it's in there and get data out of it. So that way it'd be much more useful, both to the teacher and that it's already done. And then for us to look at, this is how many trips we've had over the year, this is how many people have gone, done things like that.
Well,
don't think that's
I
what
don't
we wanna
really,
get
but I don't
involved in.
want that. I don't want to know when the PTA's taking the kids to the Bronx Zoo. Or not the PTA, but I think our greater focus is knowing, because I think the greater focus at this point is the overnights, is it not? Something that's more,
And I
more
also-
involved.
Trips aren't even on the approval list.
Right.
They-
I
that's
don't
this,
think you
that's
need
the other
to
document.
approve the
Just
field
the
trips themselves.
superintendent and the
Exactly,
principal, not the
that's,
board.
that's, I don't
not
think
our
we need to, no, absolutely.
I think that something also that the board should discuss is transportation in these trips. Because we made a decision, for example, that no school buses will go to the city. Because every time there's a problem. But it's not a policy, it's just something that Joe and I and Brian in the past made a decision. For example, another decision that it's not policy is that if we hire outside buses, our mechanics have to approve the bus, the driver. We do it, but it's not in the policy. I think that
You'd like to
it-
see a policy to
to-
stipulate all this.
to stipulate everything. So we can work together, but the transportation part, I think that we do it right, and we're very strict, but it's not in the policy, and
Okay.
I think it should
I
be
sort of
in
see
the
this as
policy.
two different policies, though, one being the transportation and the obligation, the no school buses to New York and the mechanics. I see that different as opposed to a approval for the field, the
Agree.
field trip stuff.
Forms for the
Yeah.
trips.
All right, this is,
Well, yeah, this was just sort of courtesy, heads up, here's what we're thinking, and, without a policy per se for you to look at and approve and debate, we wanted to sort of bring the spirit of our discussion from 2 weeks ago and keep everyone in the loop with the yin and the yang of, trying to create various or different levels of accountability without, approving, the minute-by-minute itinerary. There's a role to play, and I think it's a fine line of determining what the role to play is.
absolutely.
So,
Actually, I have a very dumb question. When is a teacher not a teacher on a field trip? Are they
Never.
always in
They're always-
supervision? Always in
always.
super?
They're always, you're always a teacher.
Always.
They're always a teacher.
There's nothing more
If
tiring
they're on a
than
field
taking
trip.
kids on a field trip.
Yes.
Because you're just counting all day long, and you're just worried all day long.
Exactly. They're
So
the-
You're on the job all the time when you're on a
Even
field
if you're
trip,
going to a museum and there's a docent,
yeah.
you're
Or if
still
it's
the
an
teacher.
overnight, yes.
Well, and you also,
You're
I mean, you're
like-
responsible for taking the children's medical supplies
Yes,
every time you go on a
yeah.
field trip. So, even if you're, I think even if you're just there, you're a teacher. You're always a teacher.
And that's why it's good, that this deflects a little bit of the responsibility. I mean, it puts us on the board too. This is a school district endorsement of this policy, that this field
formalizes
trip
it
is
all, yep.
worthwhile, and we've deemed it appropriate for students, and we're supporting the teachers on it too. So that's why it's good to have it formalized, I think.
So is this,
and just
Step
more
first, please.
I think it's just for us to
Okay.
take
I don't
take a look at
absolutely.
the forms.
Yeah.
that's what I was
Take a
going to
look at
say,
the forms,
take
make
a
some
look, and we can
suggestions.
come back
Okay,
next,
great.
and again in
Sure.
2 weeks if we have
Yes.
questions.
And we could-
And perhaps consider the transportation issue, like as we
Yeah,
go.
well,
as
and
a
we can
separate
put this
policy.
as a
Regulation.
sort of a regulation or addendum to the policy. A lot of districts do that.
Perfect.
Too.
All
I
right.
forgot what the number is. but-
And we're also doing kind of the same thing with our student funds too, going over forms, et cetera.
For the funding.
Well, that's
With
the,
the
that's,
auditors.
we've got the auditors have been, they've been coming through, and they
Now
will
we
be
have
doing that as
dates.
well. Have they, is that under
Dates.
I
what?
think we've
3
identified
dates.
The 3 dates that our club advisors will receive some very special targeted training on how to account for funds to make sure we're in compliance with.
Well, it's not just the funds, but it's the students, it's the
Oh, yeah.
the
The
goals of
form,
the
the
organization, the
goals.
number, just the entire program, the students that are going to be, involved, what the, I guess, what the goals of the program are.
That's a separate
The
thing. too. This is
justification.
just how they handle the student funds.
All right, so
a
that's,
separate.
that would probably, it sounds then, that would be like a procedure to the back, to
Could be a
the,
regulation.
to the new, the regulations. All right, so if anybody, if you just take a look at this, again, that's something we can,
Yeah, feel free
Any questions?
to email us feedback or thoughts. We're going to meet
Modify
again and look at the policy and then use the forms as administrative regulations.
terrific. All right, that brings us to the end of the evening. Are there any board comments? New business? Okay.
Come out
Our
and
next,
vote.
our next board meeting is Tuesday, May 20th. It's at the high school cafeteria. May 20th is also our budget vote. It will be at Frank G. Lindsay from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. It's 2 weeks from yesterday. It's a Tuesday, May 20th. There will be the budget, the buses, the Hen Hud Free Library vote, and also for two candidates for the school board trustee. And that would be Barbara and Charles, who will be, as incumbents, running again to serve for 3 more years. Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to close? Second, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you very much.